Welcome to the Future Proof Leader Podcast. I'm Jessica Rapach, and today I have Greg Lutton from Exsurgo Technologies. Just so everyone knows, before this, he told me it was eggs to go. It's Exsurgo Technologies. Very happy to have you. Greg, let's kick it off by you telling us, can you tell the world, what do you do? What's your mission in life?
To leave it better than you found it. My sole purpose is honestly to help people answer questions about what's the best path for them forward, and not even just health and wellness. I work with kids, and one of the biggest common threads is I just want to be better. Tell me what to do. And I love that because that's all about trust and developing that. And that's really the mission, is what can I do to help leave the world better than I found it? Plain and simple.
I love it. And your company with technologies.
Exsurgo Technologies is the answer to super high priced academic assessment technology that for sports performance. When I was a high school coach, I was in our strength and conditioning facility at the high school, and I was just like, which is a weight room in essence. And I was like, hey, can we do these assessments? And they were like, well, that's only for teams that win. And I'm like, yes, maybe if we did these assessments, it would help us figure out what we need to work on a little bit faster. And they were like, yeah, okay, cool. And those things were $10,000 force plates, right? They had a budget. And so then you think about what we were talking about earlier, the bubble. All across America, there are struggling high schools, there's struggling middle schools, there's struggling schools, right? And that's just public school. You then have, junior college. How do you give kids access to technology that could help answer some questions? Imagine going to the doctor not having a thermometer. Imagine going to the doctor not having a scale. And so that was where the driving factor of developing technology, sports assessment technology, was first you got to understand what it's doing, right? And so I started with jumping, things that were, to jump, right? But there's a lot to understand from a physics perspective about jumping, because for a brief moment, you are escaping Earth's clutch on you, right? By breaking gravity. And then you hit your apex, apogee, and then you come back down, right? And if you're only off the ground for a couple hundreds of seconds, right? We're talking milliseconds here, your flight time, that's what we call it. That is kind of like, how do you measure these things? And it's so neat to be able to build something for $300 that I would much rather have hundreds of people using my stuff for $300 than one person using it for 10,000, because that there is leaving it better than you found it. So we were instantly picked up, because once you hit social media and you have like a key person, we were instantly picked up by major sports teams, the Angels, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Rockies,
That's amazing.
USA Rugby, like those were some of our early adopters, but those weren't our focus. They could afford that. But then when we found out they were using it for minor league baseball, I was like, I'm totally into this. I'm totally into
Oh,
helping. And the reason for that was, I think it was the Rockies, not sure, but they got on an airplane, flew down somewhere, didn't have to check a bag, flew back, and I got an email that was like, this was the easiest data collection we've ever done. And it gives people from other countries an opportunity to come play baseball, minor league, triple A, double A, get into the system and see if they ever actually make it to the big show. You just don't know. Well, I think one of the biggest eye-opening experiences from having all of the technology was the access that I was getting to other strength and conditioning professionals, but not even just professionals, like researchers and academics. And that's, as we talked about earlier, I'm a history buff. It really just made me start to ask these questions of where did all of this strength and conditioning, where did all of this stuff come from and why? And there's a very long answer to that, but the short answer is it was people defending their farms, right? And
really?
so that was the warrior culture of the Romans, the Greeks. Back in the day, they had to defend their land. And then you have, people going off to war and World War II. They weren't going to gyms and lifting like you would normally, like what you see today. but they were doing things, whether you call it like functional fitness or not, they were doing things that required their bodies to be strong. And so when you take war away and take that kind of threat away, you're left with people who, we things like communicable diseases in exchange for lifestyle diseases, obesity, diabetes, and, there's other things that are part of that. It's not just lift the weight and it gets fixed, but there's psychological and sociological elements that are in that as well. So that's kind of like I said, like as we were talking about, you got to know where we've come from to know where we're going. And that kind of just leads us into what's the future of all this in terms of health and wellness.
Yeah. Well, the topic that we chose for today is called clarity over complexity, right? So you're at the
Right.
interface of like sports medicine, I guess mental health, but like health and wellness and IT, all pretty complex. So why is clarity so important?
I think one of the biggest things that, and we see this, I don't think people realize what Facebook is. Facebook is not for sharing pictures of your cat, you
What?
know. Yeah, I know. Or
My
for,
cat is all over Facebook.
right, I know. I didn't, do you have a cat? I didn't even know.
I have a cat. He's my life.
Oh,
No, he's not my life, but he's my baby. But okay,
yeah.
fine. I'll stop posting. It's fine.
No, no. The thing is card. Do you use a Safeway like shopper card?
We have
Do you have a,
Wegmans here in New York, the best grocery store.
right.
I'll put that plug in there. Wegmans.
Yep. Wegmans is the best. We have Wegmans down here. But that card, that ID number that you get, that's tracking every single purchase that you're doing that's going in and out of that store. It's inventory management. They're looking at trends. They're looking at all the data on the back end. And Facebook, if you've ever used Facebook Business Manager, you will instantly regret it because it's one of the most systems that there is. But when you realize all of the tracking that it can do, we're in a data tracking police state, if you will, right? Where it just everything. You can even install this cool little thing called the Facebook Pixel monitor in your browser, and it'll tell you what other websites are using that and tracking everything you do from if your webcam is open. It's tracking your eye movement over, it tracks your cursor, it tracks how long you're on the page, it tracks where you are on the page. It's phenomenal in terms of that. And we just knowingly accept that because that's the world we live in. And so, with all of that different data that's being collected, how do you make sense of it?
Right.
How do you turn it into some kind of actionable intelligence? Right? You have a background, and that's where what we created was something called training intelligence. Train int, right? Like
Oh,
SIGINT.
yes.
See it?
I get it.
See?
I get it. I'm picking it up.
So, yep. And that's why, what we built was really to kind of help people understand what to do with their data, not just to have this repo of it, because you don't even actually own it. It's in a data broker, it's in a data store that's run by someone and they're selling it. Every time you see something that says third-party data, don't sell my information, click that, right? Ask apps not to track you because they're literally monitoring every single thing that you do and profiting off of that and not giving you any of those dividends because they're making money off of those sales and transactions.
That's
So
like
all of your,
popping up everywhere. Like any
yep,
app that I have is now asking me, ask the app not to track your data. And I always say, don't track my data. But that wasn't a thing. Like that wasn't popping up before, and now it is.
it is,
Yeah.
and it's because we've moved into this era where big data, IBM, big data, they just love to have, and there's like, I mean, that's why we have these massive data centers being built. I mean, I live in Virginia, and
Oh,
what used to be forest is now all data warehouses owned by giant, huge companies, and then they rent it out.
yeah.
And then as they rent it, I mean, if you think about it, their break evens. I think this was published on there's like some data center magazine, like tech blog, that the amount of money that it takes to build a data center, they're not going to break even for 10 years. But in 10 years, the technology that they put into that thing is going to be obsolete before 10 years. So it's a messed up model where it sounds good initially, but in the end, it's going to mature faster than they can recoup the initial investment. And I may be off here, But when you read like one, two, three, four, five articles that speak about the same thing, that's where you start to realize, how can we do this? So, like I think you then have to look at, from a health and wellness perspective, what's really happening here. Because as you'll see, and we've talked about this,
Hmm?
this is an Aura ring, this is a Garmin, and this is a Whoop. And I'm wearing them.
This is an Amazon $30 watch. Just saying.
Fantastic, right? But you got to
Yes.
make sure that you are, yes, you got to make sure that you know where that data is going and who has it. Because
It's hooked to an app that did ask not to track your personal data. And I did click do my personal data. But here's my question for you, right? So you're in the sports tech, health and wellness, right? So health data is sensitive, it's
yep.
personal. So how do you balance that responsibility with innovation? How do you balance that?
So there's a lot of laws, and for whatever reason, I feel that the European laws, in terms of this, like there's some legislature that's going on in the EU that is trying to restrict the far reach of some of the American tech companies in terms
Oh,
of how much they can get into your personal data. But the EU has GDPR, we have HIPAA. HIPAA and don't actually equate. HIPAA is supposed to be, privacy of your medical information, but
right.
over there they take just a little bit farther because they don't want companies profiting off of this information, off of health information, because guess what? That's proprietary to you, right?
Yeah.
Just like your image. So if the NCAA can go and have name, image, and likeness laws where
Yeah.
people can profit off of that, because schools were, the athletes should be able to recoup that money. The EU is doing something similar with their health data, whereas in the States, they're like, nope, no, we're going to profit off of all of this. And if you look at some of the companies, they'll have this neat little thing that is like, oh, do you want personalized recommendations? Well, in order to get those personalized recommendations, that information is being fed into their massive model. That means everybody else's data is in that massive model. But the questions that you then have to ask yourself, from a security perspective are, is this data, or what are you using this data for? And one of the great things when it comes to ethics regarding this, it's like CRISPR. CRISPR is gene editing, sequencing, splicing, and you can go in now and know that you have a neonatal birth defect or anomaly from like a test or assessment. And you can go in within reason, correct some of these, right? And
Oh,
so that way you don't have a child that could potentially be born with a life-altering genetic disability slash deformity, or something that, I don't want to call it a handicap, but something that's like going
yeah.
to take away from their quality of life.
Right.
But then the question in the end then becomes, well, where do you stop? Do you want someone who's like blonde hair, blue eyed, 6'2", right? In
Yeah.
finance, that song, right?
Yes.
There's some funny song about that. But the thing is like, you stop. Where do you stop that? Where do you draw that line? The other thing to remember is that, like, when you go back to insurance, when insurance was created, health insurance, they used lifestyle questions back in the day,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
To
They're not
determine
allowed to
what
do that?
your rate would be, actuarial tables and things like that. So
Yeah.
they're taking this health information and making decisions about you. So now you're in a constant police state again, wearing all of these. This
Yeah.
data is being tracked. How does it get to, and health and wellness programs, they use this all the time. Get a Fitbit, right? And connect it to, the corporate ecosystem. And then they have like competitions to be like, oh, if you walk this many steps, you're going to get like a Starbucks gift card. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's great. And it's like a great incentive. But then what they're doing is they're making choices about you, whether or not you're employable, insurable, or you're going to be a liability to them in the future for a pre-existing health condition. And, people want to say that, like, oh, that sounds good. And it's like, but if it's true and that's what's happening, is that
See,
really
that's like,
paranoid?
see, so my works for a corporation. And I always thought we get a lot of stuff in the mail, like, hey, download this app, I think like health and wellness app Wonder or
Yep.
whatever. Or hey, like free Fitbit or whatever.
Yep.
I had just being my normal naive self, thought maybe they're trying to empower people to take care of themselves so that long term they can have their employees be like, they invest so much in these guys in the training and everything, they can have them be healthy for longer term. But you're saying they're using this stuff to analyze their health data to like maybe eliminate them from the company, or
Oh, no, I'm
oh no, oh okay,
no,
just
looking
see
at it from perspective of, are you a liability?
a liability, but
Are
it's
you
kind of the
taking
same thing though, right? Because
is
then they're gonna have more.
they also want you to be at your desk. They also want you to be productive. And so when you look at some of these health and wellness programs, they actually it's for some people, it's, I worked for a company and they incentivized us to not leave campus. Right? Why? Because they brought the dentist up to the parking lot. They brought mobile oil change. They brought a Starbucks into our like food court restaurant. They had all these different kinds of restaurants. If you wanted, Chinese food, or if you wanted sushi, or the pasta bar, or the grill, they had all these different types to incentivize you not ever to leave.
Wow, did it
Yep.
work?
Nope.
I
Because
couldn't tell you were gonna say that.
you know what they didn't have in there? Liquid lunch.
Oh
Right?
yeah, yeah,
Everybody
that's true.
likes to have, Thursday beer day or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think, one of the biggest things is that we need to understand transparency over all of this, because you have certain companies that they'll put a composite score of like, oh yeah, you got a 52 and you're like below baseline. And I'm like, what the hell's my 52 mean?
Right.
I don't know what that means. But if you told me that I got 5 hours of sleep and my baseline is 7, instantly that makes sense to me. But if you give me a 52 composite score, I have no idea what that means. And it's like, if, when we're talking about AI, and we also really need to unpack what AI is.
That was my next question. My next question is that AI is everywhere right now. So where does it truly add value in the health arena that you're in this tech arena?
I mean, it's not just in sports tech. I think first, let's explain what AI really is. In perspective, it is at the moment, there are, larger models that you can do yourself. You can go in and download some Python packages, start training neural networks, doing some deep neural reinforced learning recommendation systems. You can get into natural language processing, but the thing is they are built on a model. And so if I wanted to make my own model, I'm going to have to feed it, feed it, feed it, feed it, feed it. The more you feed it, the more it grows. The more you do, the more it knows. Right. But I made that up. That's my
I was
haiku.
like Dr. Seuss in the house. Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So but the thing about that is you then have companies that started, like Google put a paper out. I think it was, God, like 2012, 2017. I should know this. But that was kind of the like things of the GPTs, right? They were tooling around with this, and they published the paper. And incidentally, what I find really funny about a lot of these software papers is they're not peer reviewed. You can go to a source called ARXIV and find these pre-printed papers. But the thing is because the new way of doing things, you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is like, I want to try this. I want to recreate it and I want to try and build it myself. And then when you start tinkering and doing that, right? I mean, that's what innovation is. And that's where, machine learning, it's some kind of reinforcement recommendation models. Netflix uses it. Every time you hit dislike, one thumb or two thumbs, that yeah, that's into something that's saying, okay, those are your trends. It's the same thing when you go to the store. Those are your shopping trends. And then they take that and they do what's called predictive analysis to determine, which is financial forecasting, stock market. People have been doing that for years. But how do you
That's a good point.
how do you quantify that and pull it down into something that you can apply to something else, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, for instance, how do you use? I went to a healthcare conference. It was Penn State College of Medicine, right? It was my
Mhm.
little thing.
Love it.
But what was funny about that, I mean, you had CEO of Kaiser Permanente in there, and by the end of the first day, I ended up like talking to the people on the panel. I was considered an expert, and they were like, I was like, why am I an expert? And they go, well, it's because you understand this better than we do. And I was like, but you're trying to ask AI to fix surgery, right? Like trauma surgery. And it's not going to happen. And they were like, why? And I'm like, because you have a philosophical problem where surgeons are still working like 48-hour shifts and they're strapped. We literally had one trauma surgeon, like the guy gets off the phone and was like, my surgeon just quit. And I was like, there's turnover like this.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they're like, oh yeah, it's horrible. When it comes to scheduling, it comes to like accidents. I mean, people put the wrong dose into people, and is AI going to fix that? It's like there's
No.
still there's there, but if that human's fatigued, if they're fatigued on being effective, and you know this from your background, if you
Yeah.
have no sleep, it's worse than being drunk. You would be better off being rested and drunk on the job than being sleep deprived, because faculties just start to dissolve. So
Yeah.
it's like, is AI going to fix that? No. One of the cool things is there's a company called Rat AI, an AI doc, where what they did is they had it's radiology, and it's looking at all of the different screens that are done, you know, the x-rays and the images. There you go. I don't know why I was blanking on that word. And they started to train a model to pick up what the human was seeing, right? Because they were getting a lot of false positives if it was doing its own image recognition. So they had a human in the loop. That's a thing that you got to remember. Human in the loop.
I hear
And
that a lot, actually. Human in the
yep,
loop. I do.
yep.
Yeah.
You have to have a human in the loop, well, until there's a confidence level. And we have to determine what that confidence level is before you just say, oh, okay, cool. Because I
Yeah.
think even in the military, people are like, oh, yeah, cool. We're going to like let this drone do its thing. And you're like, how confident are you that that's actually going to target what it's supposed to target?
Yeah.
Because from computer vision, and people can go and figure this out on their own. It's called cvcomputervision.org or something. I dabble in it, right? With like two stereoscopic web cameras looking at something. And then I'm like, okay, image classification and figure it out. And it's like, that's a giraffe. And I'm like, that's not actually a giraffe.
That's
You
exactly
know?
what I do on my free time too. That's
Yeah, why
exactly.
not? You know, you know, you know. But I
Greg.
think what's here is, it's a term, and corporations and people are like, well, they're doing AI, then we want to do AI. And that's
Every
the same
day. I
And that's the
know.
same idiocracy being like, why aren't people drinking Brondo? It's
Mm.
like people aren't drinking Brondo because it's got what plants crave, electrolytes. No, that's not why people are drinking Brondo. AI is not the magical pill. You've got to look at it as it's a hammer. It's a tool just like any other tool. And you don't, I'm not around staring at a hammer all day, right? I'm not going to walk around,
Yeah. You have to
like,
know how to use it and when to
right.
use
I'm
it.
not going to like pick my teeth with a hammer.
Right.
It's just it's everything. And there's use cases. And within those specific use cases, to go back to some of the stuff that people are doing, it's very easy. You can go to OpenAI, Anthropic, you can go to Gemini, Google Studio, and you can get an API key real quick, real easy. Sign up a little billing thing, pop that key into like a little script that says, hey, if user types in this, query that, and give me an answer. And that's like the most simplest little prompt there is. It's like, that's a tiny little prompt, but they're using an LLM. It's a large language model. So the amount of data that's pumped into that, it's constantly reassessing, recalculating, and then it goes to a thing called nearest neighbor. So you put a term in like dog, right? You're going to get everything from dog park, dog walk, dog this, dog that, because
Yeah.
you have to have the context. And if you don't add context to it, that's where you start to get into the risky situations where it hallucinates. People don't understand why. Well, I wasn't really specific. And it's like, well, then that's why you got what you got. But again, it's somebody else's model. It's not your own. And people have said that, like, oh, well, it takes too long to do that. Here's the simple thing: it doesn't. You can literally do what I just said, go get a key, right? And
Yeah.
then, or you, I mean, you could even go into Claude and just type in, like, hey, I want to make a simple little repository that I put documents into it. And this is, again, this is natural language. I'm just telling it this, that I'm going to put documents and then I want it to summarize all my documents, right? And that's what, like, what is it? Contracts people are doing with contracts, right? Like contract agencies or grants. They take successful grants, they plug them into a thing that's training data for success. Then rejected grants, they go over here and you pump that into a thing. And then you're like, hey, I want to do this grant for NSF, National Science Federation. Hit a button and it'll go, this is the stuff that you should put in. This is the stuff that you shouldn't. And it's that simple. But you're in the power and the energy of somebody else's efforts to be able to do something like that. And again, I think, what we need to remember with all of this, you own your data, not these companies. And they make you sign all these little waivers and whatnot that are like, oh, yeah, our data does that. Always make sure that you're not letting your data go in and train other people's models. Like, check those boxes, get rid of that, because people need to understand, like, it could be taking data from other people and injecting some of that into your recommendation, because it'll take some simple things like, okay, use me. I'm, 5'10" male, 49 years old, pre-existing, like, what? My father died of lung cancer. My mother's dying of, she's not dead, but she's sick with a congenital lungs thing, right? I want information about me,
Yeah.
and my health.
Right.
But what it does is it lumps all the people that are nearest neighbor that fit that same profile and then are looking at what's 2 degrees of separation from that, right? Right? Like deviations away from that. If you're outside of that bell curve, then you become an outlier. But because you fit this model, so you could be getting information that is based on that homogenous model of people that fit your attributes. And that's where it's like, wait, what? Because then it tells you something that, like, maybe that's not pertinent or relevant. And that's where, again, ethical guardrails, right? Like, we need to make sure that when we do to something, that we are being inherently super transparent. So the platform that we built, just to talk about that for a second, it's called Fortify. Fortify. Check it out if you want.
Oh, yeah.
But we let you own your own data, right? And so if you have, we extract it from Garmin. We take it, we put it in, and you own it. If you say to me, I want to download all my data, if you wanted to go get that from Garmin, have fun emailing them. You want to get it from Aura, have fun emailing them, because they're not going to get it to you, right?
How do you get it? Or that's probably your secret.
No. It's all APIs. You have to apply for a developer account and all these different things. They do checks and vetting. And I think even personal data out of Aura, you can extract your own data as long as you know your ID, right?
Yeah, but your company has one centralized way of doing it.
Yep.
That's why people would come find you, because that's a lot of work to do it yourself. That's a lot of work.
Yep.
And so extract. So I have one last question I just been thinking about, that just like honest feedback. I want to like ask your opinion on it. Like, so what if my information, putting it out there, could help somebody else? Let's say somebody that has like my attributes or whatever in my kind of my same demographics, but my information could help them be,
Okay.
Then what?
There's something super cool about that, because so this is where those fringe cases are super helpful, right?
Okay.
Like, if you're inside the 2 standard deviations, inside that bell curve, you're like, yeah, okay, cool. But where it gets really neat is individuals who have 1 in a 10 million disease.
Right.
And guess what?
What?
That data, and you have access to that, right? From a health perspective, like, because we're connected, and I don't want to talk about like all of this is negative, because it's not. It's the future. We're getting to a point where even being a programmer, like, I know how to program. I've done it. Python's my language. I love it. But when you're tired and you forget a comma, the whole thing blows up,
Yeah.
right? There's a really funny meme, which is like, 900 errors, 800 lines of code. And you're like, what? And it's because I forgot a semicolon or something stupid. And the whole thing just explodes. But the thing is we're getting to a point where like Star Trek. Do you remember Star Trek? Did you
I
ever watch
definitely
it?
remember my dad watching Star Trek, but I was never able to watch it. I was scared.
Well, what? Don't be scared. It's the future. What I think is so great
Look at
about
the
it, though,
eyes. You can't see his eyes. Why can't you see his eyes?
yeah. That right there, that right there is a technological advancement that even design is being changed. Because if you go in and you're like, I know a triangle, right? A triangle brace on a frame is going to be like a race car frame is going to be really strong. Well, that's cool. You throw it into an AI enhanced SolidWorks design simulator, and it's like, yeah, nope, it's going to be this shape. And like the points are still there, but all of a sudden it comes up with something that's lighter and stronger. Why wouldn't you want that? Right.
Right.
And so in the future, right, of Star Trek, they're like computer, plot a course to this, that, and the other thing. We're talking astrophysics, vectors. Do you know how long it takes? Like, I mean, go back to the movie The Martian when the guy was like figuring it out. And he's like, yeah, I checked it on the supercomputer. And they're like, who are you? And he's like, get out. That guy was super smart. But those are like hundreds of thousands of calculations that are being done, and there's lives on the line going around, our planetary system. Imagine a computer that could plot those courses for you, and then you have a human go, well, that's all right. But then there's a confidence level. You have to get to a point where we're confident that these things are working. So to go back to what you were saying, someone somewhere may have this disease, and someone somewhere, because we're connected by the internet to like the entire world, you don't even have to leave your home anymore
No.
to experience the world in a virtual reality place like the holodeck. But what's super neat is you could literally be like, computer, design me a thing. I don't know why I put my hand over my face. Like,
I loved it because it's
think it's
just
from
microphone.
I think it's
We're
from like
taking Star Trek.
Star Trek 4. Scotty's like computer, and it's like, dude, this is a mouse, you know? But what's funny about that though is, we're getting to a place where like as a programmer, I really don't have to write. I still have to design things. I still have to be specific about the things that I want. I don't just go in and be like, computer, write me a program. I don't have no idea what that's going to make, right? But if you go in there and are like, okay, I want a program that does this, it's if then statements, and it's a whole collection of those things. Like when I push this button, this happens. When I do this, this happens. It's going to interface with this. When you know that from a design perspective, an architecture perspective, that's why data architects matter. That's why designers matter. That's why people who have that as jobs, people like me, project managers and producers, I literally look at the world and I'm like, God, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this differently? And that's where it starts, because what we're trying to do, and we go back to the mission, it's leave it better than you found it. So what if there were tools out there from a health and wellness perspective that connected all of this stuff? And there's this concept, it's called a digital twin. It existed for years, and people are trying to recreate you, but then simulate you and how you evolve and age, and like what you could potentially, like what pathways life is gonna take based on where you are currently, to predict like what are your future things. Because if you could do an intervention now, would you do that? Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like if I'm
I mean, I
for what,
guess, like, but that's like psychic. Like, I feel like, I don't
but
know.
it's not though. It's
That's
predictive. No, it's predictive. It's predictive analytics. It's forecasting. It's the same thing as a financial model in the stock market. There used to be people who understood that, and they were like, "Oh, I see the trends." And you're like, "What are you, the like water diviner?" Like
yeah,
they
like
knew.
I will tell you this. If you 10 years ago told me I would be doing what I'm doing right now, I would have laughed hysterically in your face because I'd have been like, no way. Like, there's no way I'm going to do that. But yet here I am. See,
I
there's
know.
in the loop. So if someone wants to find you and make you their human in the loop, where do they find you? You got a website, book, all the above, LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn. I do have a website. That's our technology platform. If you're in the greater Virginia area, we run a training facility called Exsurgo Strong and Fit. And our new initiative that we're putting out is Fortify, which takes all of your wearable data your performance data, your health data, jams it into one ecosystem. And then every time you add more activities, data to it, it helps us understand your fatigue, helps us understand your readiness, and then gives you suggestions and recommendations, because sometimes people are like, what should I do with all this? Well, we help you with that. Because why? Leave it better than you found it.
I love it. So your website, LinkedIn, and you got to write a book. You're a really smart dude. I think you should write a book. And then I'll have you back on the podcast and we can talk about your book. Well,
Awesome.
Greg, thank you so much for being on the show. To the
Thank
audience
you.
members, look him up. Very cool guy to connect with. You're doing awesome things for the world, and I know you'll be great. So thank you so much. And for everybody else, we will see you in next episode.